Derek Jeter.
So since we're just throwing out some random things tonight as JaMychal Green gets to the bucket, how about this one that came up on Twitter right before we hit air?
As much as you can. He's going to make shots, but we can't let him get to the rim the way he was getting to the rim.
Got
And he's right. Doc understands. And the concern is when you put Lou Williams into that starting lineup, where does the scoring come from?
For Toronto, but was healthy and fresh in the playoffs and averaged over 30 per game. Did a pretty good job on him, but the tip in by JaMychal Green.
Patrick Beverly, the veteran, understanding that scoring is not his strong point.
A lot of people weren't sure as Green hits a three.
Big JaMychal Green guys here.
Big JaMychal Green guy.
Big JaMychal Green guys.
He's a big guy, too. Big guy.
He's a big guy. What is up, everybody? Welcome into the DNVR Nuggets podcast. I'm your host today, Adam Matez. I'm joined by my esteemed crew of Denver Nuggets experts, analysts, and then, of course, Eric. But first,
should I leave?
but first, sitting here up in the top right, looking like an extra in a, I would say, like a gangster movie. It is Brendan Vogt.
Gangster movie, huh? I feel very Colorado right now. I am assimilating.
You look
Got
like
my North Face on.
Yeah, I'd say you look like an extra at 8 Mile or something, like one of the smaller parts.
That's not what I was going for, but I'll take it.
The man with the wind in his hair, Harrison Wind.
Very excited to be moving forward into the on-season with you guys.
I don't know. Little tease.
That's not how you speak, Harrison. Be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Be proud of how you mispronounce words. And then, of course, we've got the artist.
Oh,
You know him as Eric. I know him as D-Line Co.
that made me feel especially good.
All these inside jokes that I don't know if anybody actually gets, but we enjoy doing. Guys, today we have an exciting show because the on-season is here. Of course, yesterday was the first day of the on-season, like the week of the on-season, but today was actually an official training camp day, even if training camp this year is weird as hell and players are working out 1-on-0 for this first portion of training camp. But we did get to speak to Michael Malone today. We got to speak to JaMychal Green today for the first time. And we got to speak to Monte Morris today. And there was not every media availability is packed with important details. But when you come back after a long offseason with a new roster and under such crazy circumstances as this, I felt like this was a very content-rich media availability today. What do you think, Harrison?
Totally. And Michael Malone, it's funny, he always comes into every season with a theme or a central message that he's trying to instill on his roster. And for me, this is a different situation heading to training camp than the Nuggets have ever been in. That's the big theme around this team right now. And just in my opinion, they've had so much continuity, so much just roster steadiness from year to year. They've brought the same guys back really these last 2 seasons completely. This year they're bringing in 7 new guys. And
Right.
You couple that with just this crazy offseason, how short it's been, how over these first couple days of workouts, guys are only going to be playing 1-on-0. That just adds the kind of complexity of bringing in a bunch of new pieces. So I feel like that's where Michael Malone's at. He's really excited for the season, but he's also just a little trepid over just kind of the changing parts.
Yeah. And that was a big theme, I thought, of today's media availabilities. The last 3 media days, whatever this is, training camp stuff, we've talked about the Nuggets continuity, and Malone has really poked fun at the lack of variety in our questions, everything hitting that buzzword. It's all different this year, or not all, but so much is different, probably more so than in any year in my tenure here covering this team. So there were genuine questions to be asked, answers we're seeking, and some updates on Will Barton as well. So an information-packed media availability. Stoked to talk about it with you guys.
And if you guys
I'm
are new
to find out about it myself.
Yes, if you guys are new to the show or new to the program, I know we've picked up a lot of people. Myself, Harrison, and Brendan Vogt are credentialed media members and have been for several years. Eric is not, nor is he a reporter, nor does he have any journalistic integrity at all. But it makes it nice.
Integrity
of any type. Yeah.
This is a real one of these things is not like the other situation each and every day here in the DNBA show.
But he is a really great guy. And It does, Eric, and because a lot of it you often represent sort of the audience or the fans. So we will rely on you to sort of ask questions and things that you're curious about since you were not part of this media availability. But I do want to talk about what I thought was probably the single biggest revelation as it pertains to the actual basketball and training camp that is about to be played, which is that Michael Malone said, and I think we have this. Cale, do we have the audio available of the full quote from Malone yet, or are we still working on that? We got it.
I would say our starting 1 and our starting 5 are pretty well cemented. We've got 2 pretty good players, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic. Phenomenal talents coming off of an incredible run down in Orlando in those 19 playoff games. After that, I'll be honest, Harrison, I can't sit here today in this secretive location and tell you who our starting 2, 3, and 4 will be. That is something that I look forward to kind of looking at and watching. I will say Michael Porter, I think, really showed himself well in those 19 playoff games that he had a chance to play in Orlando. And I think Michael Porter has a chance to be an all-league talent.
Okay, there's a lot to get to in that quote, but I kind of have to start at the most important aspect of this. This was, for the record, this was Harrison Wynn's question, and I swear Michael Malone threw Harrison a little bone here and said forward. He's looking forward. Did anybody else hear this?
We've already got someone in the comments saying they hear it.
They heard it, right? You guys heard this one.
I stopped. I was like in this meeting, and I just went immediately to the Slack.
I think it took like 5 seconds before Vogt to put in the Slack. Did he just say forward?
No, do we have just the clip?
Forward.
Do we have
I don't even know.
That is something that I look forward to. That is something that I look forward to. That is something that I look forward to. That is something that I look forward to.
It's like Harrison's mic malfunction.
He didn't say forward. He didn't say forward. He said like forward.
He said forward.
All right, guys.
FOWRD. FOWRD.
Full on conspiracy quarter. We have to take a vote. Brendan, did Michael Malone just throw a little bone to Harrison Wynn here on Harrison Wynn's question?
Look, man, this is one too many coincidences. Michael Malone is listening. He may very well be watching. Move forward accordingly. He did say forward.
What do you think, Eric?
I think he said forward. I think he was literally. I don't know that it felt to me like it felt to me like not a nod, but he was like suffering from the same affliction that plagues Harrison whenever he said it
was a genuine stutter.
It wasn't intentional. It was just like an East Coast kinship that
right. Me and Michael Malone, both from New York, both born in New York. People from New York just say different words different ways. That's just how it is.
That's how it is.
You and Michael Malone have none of the same speech.
Harrison Wynn, noted New York person. Harrison Wynn.
Like he might have said fjord. Yeah, I'm gonna vote yes. Why not? It's more fun. I'm gonna vote yes. This was a total nod.
So it's 2-1. Harrison.
2-1.
He was. Well, the second question is: was it in honor of, or was it mocking Harrison Wynn?
Oh, definitely mocking. Definitely mocking. Definitely mocking.
All right. So all jokes aside, we were excited when we heard that today. But all jokes, and Michael Malone is the type of guy to always throw those little. He's a pretty funny guy, like in the little scrums. But the
funny
thing
guy,
that he was,
Michael Malone.
no, he is a funny guy.
He's funny.
He's very comical. Very comical.
Get him a T-shirt. Funny guy.
How am I funny?
What are you saying? He's like, I tell jokes or something? Like, what's going on? Yeah, he would definitely respond like that. But what he was talking about was the starting spot. And so I don't know what I find more interesting. I think everybody is looking at the season on pins and needles wondering what MPJ, is he going to be the starter? Is he going to step up? Is he going to melt? All of that stuff. But I was equally as surprised to hear that 3 spots are up for grabs. I could have thought 2 spots. I could have thought 1 spot. I could have thought 2 power forward as well. The shooting guard spot's up for grabs. That to me is as interesting as any of this. No vote?
Yeah, I would have thought that actually would be the third lock. Some people might say MPJ. Right. I think it probably leaning there, but given what Will Barton has contributed to this team, Malone's hesitation to play him in the past, it's never been a lock. Gary, a little surprising.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because they're waiting to see how and if Will Barton factors into either of these competitions. But I would have guessed that Gary Harris was a set-in-stone starter.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this last night. Like, what do we think the starting lineup is going to be? And I really thought there was only one battleground at that power forward position. Whether or not, because I envision a world in which it is JaMychal, it is Gary Harris, it is MPJ, just by virtue of the fact that the logjam in front of him disappeared and went to Detroit for some reason, and then. Is it JaMychal Green? Is it Dad? And then Jokic, obviously. Like, I really just thought it was a competition between Green and Dad, but I guess we'll see.
So, yeah, I wrote this on thednvr.com today when I was just kind of laying out some storylines to follow during training camp and just how I think this year is just all about MPJ. I've been told that Michael Porter Jr. is going to be the starting small forward. I think that's what's going to happen.
Wow.
But then again, I'm not surprised that Michael Malone is leaving it up to discussion and competition at this point. It's probably smart of him to do that, but I totally expect MPJ to be at the 3 when this season starts. I've also been told Paul Millsap's going to start the 4, just with the familiarity there with him and Nikola Jokic. And we even heard from JaMychal Green. We'll talk about him in a second, but he said today he's more than okay with coming off the bench. The 2 is super interesting, though. Because you've got Gary Harris, you've got Will Barton there, and when you think about like position battles, usually they're between 2 up-and-coming guys who are looking to establish themselves in the league. I feel like this could be a little awkward if Gary Harris and Will Barton are competing against each other at the 2. These are 2 established guys, the 2 longest tenured Nuggets on the roster. They have a lot of pull in that locker room. That seems like it's a little awkward to me.
So you're mentioning it as a Barton-Gary battle, and that would be awkward. I don't know if I even see it that way. I mean, again, we've been trying to make sense of why the Nuggets brought in another point guard when they already had 3 on the roster, all of whom seemed like they were primed to play this year. PJ Dozier, Monte Morris, and now Facundo Campazzo. So now the question is, what if one of those guys starts? And I'm not saying it's Campazzo, but what if it is the plan is always to have 2 point guards on? I think Campazzo and PJ Dozier project to pair really nicely together because one of them is a long boy and one of them is really short, and you can do some of this stuff. But so maybe Monte is competing for that spot. Maybe maybe PJ is competing for that starting spot. It makes sense to me if you just throw out what it means and what it says to your team, because one of the questions I have for this season, if you just talk about the things that concern you, we always talk about the balance between continuity and going stale. And I wonder if some of the guys that I worry about personally, Monte Morris wanted an extension this year, has not received it. Gary Harris, his role on this team has sort of lowered, and his production has lowered over the course of a few years, and you wonder how much longer he's happy with that. And Will Barton is effectively in a contract year coming off of an injury. I'm not saying that there is tension or anything with him now, but there could easily be, especially if you talk about a guy in Gary Harris who's been starting for the Nuggets for 4 seasons, suddenly finds himself in a greatly reduced role. Right. So to me, I hear these things, and my ears go up, and I go, that's another landmine or minefield for Malone to navigate.
And Malone's gone to this competition in the past and found water with it, right? I mean, it's inspired. He had a team full of guys that were all willing to sort of put their personal stuff aside for the time being to pursue a common goal, a collective goal. And I'm sure they still all feel that way, but like with each season you do that, it gets a little harder. Like both Gary and Will probably have a leg to stand on to say, no, I have earned a starting spot. Enough with that stuff. It was cute, it was fun, but I know who I am to this team. And I think they would both have a sort of right to throw their hat in that ring. Yeah. So I'd be interested to see if it bears fruit for Malone this time around.
I would be surprised if it's not Gary or Will at the starting 2. Something else I've been told is that Will Barton is excited about the prospects of potentially playing more 2. With Michael Porter Jr. stepping in at the 3. He's been playing out of position for these last couple of years at the 3. So and I think it's going to happen, but like when MPJ gets established at that starting 3, I think Will would love to place him too. So I think it's going to be between those 2 guys, though, Gary and Will.
It's so interesting. It's so funny, like the way that sports are, just the fact that every year your organization, the place that you work for, just hires 2 or 3 more people, right. And like you just have like whether or not like and it's not even like whether or not they should. It's just they do. It come and so
it's like DNVR. Eric, you did a great job. This was a great year for us. But we got a new graphic designer. He's younger. He's a lot younger. You know, like
he's got a lot more to prove than you. But we want to pay you at your age. You know?
Yeah, we weren't necessarily looking for one, but like we had to.
Yeah, it was the best one on the board. We're considering your name's popping up in trade rumors over to 104.3 The Fan. You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'll listen. Yeah. But the idea that just. Because there is this notion of the continuity and things that have been earned and things that have been proven in the past, but at a certain point, like you just start over every year and you just have to reestablish everything. So I'm really interested to see what Gary is able to bring. And it will be interesting, obviously, for you guys to be able to watch to see like what kind of dynamics happen in the locker room. I guess maybe you won't get to go there, but no one gets to go to the locker room. But just the fact, like you'll just being able to see if there's any like cues of people that are feeling slighted, and if you do have those like weird human elements that get brought into, what we often talk about is just sort of like a mechanical placement of pieces. So.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge this comment because I think this is just so highly unlikely, but it is another sort of scenario that there's been a couple of highly unlikely scenarios that we've dismissed over the last several months that have actually come true. One of them being Jeremy Grant not re-signing with the Denver Nuggets and teams offering him $20 million. So although I think it's unlikely that Michael Porter Jr. would start at power forward and the Nuggets playing like especially small, it at least is a thing that could happen. I mean, that is an option that
screams like death lineup to me. That screams, go-to offensive lineup to close a game that nobody can stop.
It does not seem like a Michael Malone comes out of training camp and is like, you know what?
We'll roll those 5 out. Yep.
But also on the topic of just, he did, by the way, in that quote we just played, MPJ having the inside track, he talked about how great he looked in the playoffs, which I thought was kind of funny because he got benched in the playoffs. But he did look good. I think he means down the stretch and what have you. But he also did... And I think today was a day that really hammered this home. This is more of a different Nuggets team than any of the last 4 or 5 seasons. There's been more roster turnover, 7 new players, and
a lot.
And even though it's the core guys are still back, I think the idea with Barton being sort of a mystery and some of these other things, I think it does feel more than ever like this is going to be a unique sort of training camp for him. And to make things harder, the team is practicing right now 1-on-0. Everybody has these like individual workouts. And Malone said that not until the 6th, which is a couple more days away, 5 more days away. Sunday. That is the first day that the team can get together for a team workout. And he said that'll be the day that many of the guys meet each other for the first time. Think about how weird that is.
What is this?
These guys haven't even met each other. And we're talking about how they fit and this and that stuff. And it's like, well, they haven't even said hi.
Yeah, it just kind of adds to the difficulties of this season and the fact that there's been so much turnover because, like, looking back to last year, Jeremy Grant was the only new piece here in Denver. Yeah, Michael Porter Jr. was joining the rotation, but he had already been around these guys for a year. Jeremy Grant was the only new piece. And now you've got JaMychal Green. You've got Isaiah Hartenstein. You've got Facu Campazzo. You've got all these guys who have never met their teammates. And I don't know, is there a team dinner? I don't know if there's a team dinner. Probably not a formal team dinner. That's always like a seminal. That's always like a seminal moment in every team's beginning.
And
of
then somebody
camp.
Gets up and speaks and says, "Hey, there's always that. It's a big moment." Not until the 11th. The NBA sent out a memo saying no team dinners until the 11th. So maybe they will have one, but it won't be anytime soon.
Wouldn't it be amazing? You just are driving down the street and you see the Nuggets set up at outdoor tables at a bike lane, like all us.
By the way, I think this highlights some of the different ways players can have value inside a locker room and the different presences people can bring to the table. For example, Monte Morris has already reached out to Campazzo, which is not surprising because we know in the past he's always the first guy to reach out on social media or in real life to the newcomers. And I just think this year more than ever, that stuff really matters. That's why I've coined him like the mayor of Denver. And I just think that's very encouraging to know that Monte, the number one guy who could be affected, by the way, by some of these additions, particularly Campazzo, has reached out to these guys and done what he can to bridge that gap because it'll be important you can't foster that chemistry, and they don't have that continuity hitting the ground running this year.
Should we take? Is there anything else from Michael Malone that you feel like needs to be shared, Vogt or Harrison? Any other big takeaways?
I mean, shout out Michael Malone for watching the DNBA show, the DNVR, listening to the DNVR Nuggets podcast.
Such a homie.
Thanks for your listenership. We appreciate it. And yeah, we'll keep trying to put together good shows for you.
I don't know if you wanted to save this because I'm sure we'll talk about it more. It came up in the other interviews. He had some interesting stuff to say about Will Barton, I thought.
Yep.
When asked about his status. Real quick, I'll just say that he hasn't seen Will Barton, quote, in quite some time, end quote, but from everything he hears from Will and his people, he's doing well both physically and mentally. He stressed the mental part, which I thought was noteworthy. So we got some updates from him and from Monte as well, which we'll talk about on the other side of the break.
Yeah, definitely. Listen to this from DraftKings, guys. The gyms may not be full, but there's definitely no shortage of madness this college basketball season. For us fans, the college basketball powers that be have gifted us with a top-tier matchup between two powerhouses. This weekend, Gonzaga and Baylor will be going toe-to-toe for what could be the nation's top ranking. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is bringing you closer to the action with these can't-miss offers. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all college basketball fans who sign up now the chance to win $100 when betting on either Gonzaga or Baylor to win this clash of titans. Plus, you'll get a deposit bonus up to $1,000 as well when signing up using the promo code DNVR. Make sure to use that promo code. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR when you sign up for your shot to turn $1 into $100 when betting on either Gonzaga or Baylor to win. That's right, $1 to win $100. Use promo code DNVR during sign-up to take advantage of these great offers. For a limited time, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus. Deposit bonus requires 25x playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
Sweet. Is that it?
Oh, that's it from DraftKings. Also, I think I just want to give a quick shout out to Breck Brewery because I think they still have that ice skating rink set up. I think they've still got that
big
tubing hill set up at the farmhouse. Not that far from downtown Denver. Probably not that far from where you're located, but I'm excited for the inevitable DNVR ice skating outing. I'm excited for that to see all you guys on ice skates.
I'm going to check you into the board so hard. But just to be clear, out of love. Man, Adam just keeps upping the ante. Do I have any more Breck Brew stuff? All I have is a hat and an actual beer.
That's enough, I think. We believe you. We believe you that you're Breck Brew.
Do you? Okay, good.
Alrighty. Okay, so let's get back here to it. Now, maybe the highlight of today, other than Michael Malone's forwardness, was our first conversation with JaMychal Green. And I got to say, guys, I'm going to start with my first big takeaway because I don't know. There's a couple meaty details in there that I did not know.
The meaty D's.
My number one takeaway is big fan of JaMychal Green, man. I mean, I saw this coming from all the Clippers fans that and writers and stuff that were like, yeah, man, he was great to cover, great teammate, all this stuff. But then you saw him on Instagram reacting to trying to figure skate. Come on, man. They don't make skates my size. Then I saw that
good excuse.
But then I saw that he replied to every person that wrote him on Instagram, thanking him. And you think, okay, this guy seems cool. Talking to him today, he seems like a nugget, man. Like, and I mean what I mean by that is he seems like Denver has targeted guys that know and accept their role, that are about the good things, that just aren't for all the auxiliary things or distractions or whatever. He really impressed me today in his media availability, and I am more excited now to be covering this guy and watching him than ever before.
It's wild, man. Like the ways this is sort of poetic with Jeremy Grant going out, JaMychal Green coming back in, Grant being essential to that Clippers series. Green should have maybe playing more on the other side.
Right.
Grant leaving because he wanted a bigger role, maybe some other reasons, we're not sure. But Green, what did we learn today? He wants to be in Denver. And not just does he want to be in Denver, he wants to be here for the right reasons. He believes in Jokic and Murray. He believes in Michael Malone.
Big fan in Jokic and Murray, man. Like, he was raving about those two.
Big fan. So he mentioned that he almost signed with the Nuggets last season before re-signing with the Clippers.
Did not know that.
Had this in the back of his mind the whole time that he wanted to come back to Denver and that this was sort of an easy decision for him. And that he likes the play style. He likes the way Denver plays, be willing to be a part of that, even to come off the bench. This is 100% every box checked. Things you wanted to hear from JaMychal Green, we heard them today.
Wow. That's awesome. So I wonder if when we were hearing rumblings from the front office that players and agents were reaching out saying that they wanted to play in Denver, if he was just specifically talking about JaMychal Green.
It could be, man, because it does sound like, I mean, Brendan kind of alluded to it just a second ago, but that they were close last year to working a deal. And you remember Denver last year traded for Jeremy Grant, right? They made that move. It makes me wonder if JaMychal Green was right there in the conversation.
The other guy, right?
Yeah, the other guy or something.
Wind framed it that way, that there were two guys. They scoured the whole league and there were two guys.
So he was not the other guy.
He was not the other guy. All right,
he was not the other guy in the Jeremy Grant discussion. But I think they might have had interest in him in just like another capacity. Sure.
Sure.
So I think that was cool. What did you take away from it, Wind?
Super nice guy, man. Southern hospitality with JaMychal Green, I feel like is real. He's like from Alabama. Just seems like a really down to earth, low key guy. And like you said, Adam, he seems like a nugget. And then, like Vogt was saying, I think you're spot on. He likes the Nuggets' play style. He likes how they're always moving. It's actually funny. Jeremy Grant made a very similar comment to that when he actually arrived in Denver last training camp. He was like, I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm coming from Oklahoma City where it was just Westbrook and Durant playing ISO ball. I'm excited to be in this free-flowing offense. That's kind of what JaMychal Green had to say today, coming from the Kawhi Leonard and Paul George Pistons. And then I also thought it was interesting. He just kind of mentioned this offhand, but he was saying how when the Clippers blew that 3-1 lead, he saw how much heart and how much fight the Nuggets had, and that seemed like it really resonated with him. And was another reason why I wanted to come here.
Not to just totally rag on the Clippers, although Eric, if you want to, feel free.
I would love to.
But there was a lot of I felt like there was a decent amount of contrasting the Clippers and what it was like to be on that team to what he hopes it will be like with this Nuggets team. I mean, just from the unselfishness and the toughness, and it's just so funny because prior to that series last year, every blowhard in the world would have said, "Oh, the Clippers are a tough team because they've got Beverly and they've got Morris and they got Kawhi and guys that are," and then Denver, they're the soft team. Look at them. And it's funny for the actual player who was involved with that being like, yeah, this team is really tough, man. Like they're, you know what I mean? It's just, it's such a hilarious contrast to me.
That is, when you look at the two squads, I mean, it's funny because the front man, Kawhi Leonard, is the least outspoken player, but Patrick Beverly, very outspoken. The Morris brother, I can't even remember which one it was anymore, very outspoken. And the Nuggets are just like, they don't talk. Like Paul Millsap does not talk. Nikola Jokic talks only to the refs, but he's not like trash talking other players. And it's funny, like to see the what is it? Be quiet and walk with a big stick. What like
speak softly and carry a big stick.
Big stick. I got at least two of those.
You
words,
were so close.
But the idea being that like the little dog barks loud, but the the actual tough guys just like go out and do their work, right? Like, and so. JaMychal Green being in there was able to see the truth. Like the Nuggets were not at all shaken by the Clippers. It was like a team that had heart and resilience, and it wasn't just like a lucky break that they were able to overcome that 3-1 lead. The cracks in the Clippers and their false bravado came out, and so that I mean that's awesome to see that confirmed from an inside source.
It's also like, for me, part of the Jokic experience is this guy's helping to redefine what greatness looks like and what we expect from these guys, and that you have to be Jimmy Butler to be an effective leader in a dog moment. But what does anyone that's watched the Nuggets closely for the last 2 years know about Jokic? The dude's a dog. So I don't know. I just love that. Like the Nuggets don't have that. They don't project that outwardly, but in between the lines, they've got it for days, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I'm excited for JaMychal Green. I'm all in. And look, this is us, right? We root for the Nuggets. We talk about them nonstop. Like, we want to like these guys, but he made it really easy today, I thought, and really over the last couple little bit. You got what's going on?
I can't stop laughing at how badly I botched that phrase and how it was summed up in the comment. It was not lost on the commenters how poorly I did.
You're getting flamed in the comments. My final thing on JaMychal Green, and this is just what I took away from what he said today. I don't think he shed a tear when he found out he wasn't going back to the Clippers. I think he was more than happy to move on from that organization.
And Montrezl Harrell, too, like when he went with the Lakers, it just kind of like threw some darts on the way out at the organization.
We got to ask JaMychal Green about Paul George a lot. Just see. Why not?
Yeah.
Maybe he's the leak. We'll find out.
The other player that talked today was Monte Morris. I'm not going to lie, guys, one of my favorite Nuggets of the last decade. I'm a big fan of Monte. I worry that he's entering the final year of his contract. I fear that this might be the end of the line with Monte. I hope not, but we'll find out. What did you take away from his his availability today?
You know what? I sort of hit on my big takeaway, which was comments on Campazzo. Well,
Barton
and Campazzo as well. And he said, he's a hell of a player. I like playing with guys like this. He said he wasn't surprised to see the team add another playmaker. He knows Malone likes that. He wouldn't be surprised if they're one of those teams in the NBA that runs 3, sometimes even 4 guards at a time this season. So I just loved hearing that from Monte because I think, again, we talked about how things can change in terms of team goals and personal goals. And I don't think anyone would blame him if he was starting to feel a certain type of way about not getting that extension yet. But he appears to be locked into his role with this team on and off the court. And then I don't want to rush us into the next segment, but the Barton stuff as well, I thought was notable.
You could talk about that, but we'll go to Harrison here first,
Sure.
Just his takeaway.
I loved what Monte had to say because he pretty much laid out what's going to be different about this Nuggets team this year, like in one sentence. He said that they're going to play faster, they're going to shoot more threes, they're going to try to get to the rim more, not settle for as many mid-rangers and floaters, and just create more three-pointers. Get to the foul line more. He wants to get to the foul line more. So,
wait, are we the Rockets now? Just like that? We're back to the Denver Rockets?
I mean, the Nuggets have been bottom 5 in pace these last 2 years. They were bottom 5 in three-point attempts per game last year. It seems as if, from what Monte said today, there's going to be a shift. They're going to look to play up-tempo more. And I think this goes right along with them signing Campazzo, them playing a lot of two-point guard looks. They're just going to try to change some things up on the offensive end, get into the teeth of the defense more, kick out for threes. It seems like there could be a little bit different of an offensive approach this year.
So I like what my guy Ear 1981 here is saying, that Monte, he's calling it Monte is starting, and here's the thing: the Nuggets cannot keep. I don't think they can hold on to Monte Morris next year unless they have a trade that sheds salary, because right now they're paying Gary Harris and Will Barton basically the money that would go toward. The only way that you could make that money happen is if you shed that. But Monte's really small. I'm not a big fan of the small, putting too many short guys on the court. But for Monte, I make the exception. I love when he's on the court. I think that he fits in with all kinds of different styles. When him and Jamal Murray are playing together, it's great things happen. Monte Morris and Jokic obviously know what to do. I'm just such a big Monte fan, and I worry that Denver, this might be the end of it for him. So, like I said, hearing Malone's comments today and just talking about how that 2-guard spot is up for grabs, I think there's at least a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that I would not be surprised if you just took everything in a vacuum and you just went into training camp and you looked at what looked good for the Nuggets in camp. I would not be surprised if what looked best was Jokic, Murray, MPJ, and Monte Morris as one of the other 2 guys in there. I would not be surprised if that wasn't what shined in camp.
But can you imagine that team starting MPJ now, losing Grant, Millsap arguably takes a step back, and now you're starting 2 point guards and one's pretty small. That's a big ask for a coach like Michael Malone, who I don't know how comfortable he would be with that defensively. But to your point, Adam, and Wynn's been on this for years, at times the best the Nuggets have looked in the half-court offense, outside of just that 2-man game of Jokic and Murray, is when Monte is out there and Murray can get off ball. So it's not off the table.
No. Yeah, I personally just feel like the Nuggets will probably evolve into that, but I feel like regardless of what they're talking about, like I think that because of how little time they have to prepare for this new season, they're going to go to their security blanket, which is playing their most known commodities together the most to begin with. Like It's going to be, I believe it will be Jokic, Millsap, Gary, and then Jamal, and then just that last question of whether or not it's that's what I'm saying. Like the three,
it's gonna be Porter,
MPJ slides in,
if
MPJ slides in, or if he feels, that is what I believe what will happen. But what you're talking about, I think, is probably the final form of what this Nuggets team rounds.
And I see this comment right here that Monte is more like six man because he is leader of the bench. Like I see it, except for that Campazzo, I think, also becomes the leader of the bench. Like he can take on that role. And I think one of the things that's great about Monte Morris, I honestly think he fits in every configuration because he's a great skilled player and a great, he thinks the game well. So he knows, I'm out here with the second unit. Me and Mason Plumlee last year. Me and Mason Plumlee pick and roll is the staple of this offense. Oh, I'm out here with Jamal Murray. Murray Jokic is the staple, and I got to just make sure I'm doing all the things that help us keep getting back to there if we need to. So I don't know. I'm warm to the idea of Monte Morris moving into that starting lineup, and I hope it happens. I hope that it's a thing that's at least a possibility, or at least that there's a lot of configurations there, because him and Murray together, I just think is a winning combo.
Are we going to get a two-man game of Jamal and Jokic, and then a second two-man game of Campazzo and Hartenstein?
You know what? I hope so. I hope so. Anything else before we move on, take another break, and then come back for the final segment?
I did like that Monte and Campazzo have already talked. Yeah. Because, I mean, Monte said he wasn't surprised when they signed Campazzo. I'll admit it, I was surprised. I did not think Denver would, in this offseason, add another rotation-level point guard. I just didn't. They had Monte, they had PJ Dozier waiting in the wings. I was surprised. But Monte seemed like today he's pretty convinced that those two are going to be able to play really well next to each other, and I'm buying it. I think it could work really well, too.
He also said he's heard from Will Barton, said Will's doing great, but a quote he did say that sort of caught my ear was that Thrill is back to dunking the basketball.
Right.
Which may help to illustrate just how far away Will Barton was from playing. That he couldn't even dunk, which is something he once did effortlessly. Remember, he was once in a dunk contest. Whether or not he should have been, he was. So, and now, so I don't know. I guess you could look at that glass half full or half empty, I suppose.
Yeah. All right, what do we got here? What do we got here? Oh, MSU Denver Online. I took a class at MSU Denver Online last summer. I am a proud MSU Denver Online alum, even though I did not graduate. I took a class there. I guess I am technically still enrolled. I'm technically still a student. Check out their entire course list, msudenver.edu/online. The teachers at MSU Denver Online are incredible. They've been teaching online forever, so they've totally mastered how to get content and classroom coursework from their mouth to your ears over the internet. They've been doing this forever. And online education is really the only option a lot of us have right now. So check out their entire course list, msudenver.edu/online. Great for any type of student. And the DNVR Rugby Podcast, make sure to check that out with Colton Strickler. Best rugby podcast out there. And he's keeping it locked on the DNVR rugby scene in Denver, in the state of Colorado. Always a lot going on, so make sure to check that out.
All right, sweet. All right, final segment here. We have some Campazzo news. But I did want to get into one thing. I saw somebody in the comments here with a great Monte at PG. Jamal played shooting guard in college. Correct. Do you remember who he played shooting guard alongside? Who was the point guard?
Tyler Ulis.
Tyler Ulis, who in my opinion is like a smaller Monte Morris. Yeah. Very, 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 very similar skill sets. Now, Denver and the NBA in general, I think, places the ball more in just Jamal Murray's hands. Even if Monte is more of the true point guard or whatever, I still think with the way it works, it would be a little different than that dynamic. But it's not to say that it would be wholly unnatural, and that's just why I bring it up.
It could be like when we had Moutier running the point where he would just come up. The second he would cross half court, he would just pass it off, and he was technically bringing the ball up.
But that's important, though, Eric. Yeah. You're making a joke of it. No, but it's actually really important because
he made no playmaking after that.
A couple things here. Bringing the ball up can be taxing, especially over the course of 48 minutes, and just against pressure or whatever. And then secondly, smart defenses force the guy with the ball to take it out of his hands in a disadvantaged place, right? So if that's Monte, and it's like, hey, we just need you to bring it up and get it to Jokic, and now we can run our set in the spots that we want, that's actually a pretty big advantage.
Yeah, I'm saying, though, like, rather than like a Chris Paul type of point guard where he brings it up and then starts the play, like if he just got to get it over the half-court line and then just passes it off to Jamal every time and then they go into the two-man, like, okay, what's the difference?
People are saying I'm showing off with my Campazzo. I'm all in on Campazzo, man. I'm telling you, like, maybe I'm the sucker here, but I've like already been so won over with all the little like things about him arriving. We saw the picture of him and his wife and daughter at the, I think it was daughter at the downtown, and like his arrival, and then 16th Street, yeah. And then today we get, do you have it the letter there, Kale? Do we want to pull it up because he wrote a letter and it's on. Hoops Hype published it. I don't know where the letter originally went out, and if Hoops Hype, usually they aggregate things. But he had a couple really interesting things. If you can scroll down aside, I think it's it starts with aside, because he's kind of explaining right here. He's kind of explaining why he came to Denver, and he says, aside from being super happy about becoming an NBA player, I'm also ecstatic about doing it so with the Nuggets. There was mild interest from New York and Minnesota. Made a hard run at my services with my friend Pablo Prigioni, recruiting me all the time, but it was impossible to say no to Denver. The fact that they are a playoff team where you can compete for major things and get a lot of visibility really factored into my decision. Not to mention, they have a bit of an international flavor, which made Denver even more appealing. Also, and this is the next paragraph, also, Manu Ginobili, Andres Nocioni, and Luis Scola put in a good word for the organization and the city. At that point, I was sold.
Wow.
We've been waiting for this answer. We've been waiting for why was it that Campazzo chose Denver and seemed so gung-ho. Who else was interested? Okay, the Knicks. You would think maybe a European playing in a large, or he's not a Euro, but playing in Europe and having a large city, New York would be a draw. Minnesota probably has a chance to go in and play a bigger role even than he has in Denver. Still chose Denver because of the team, the international flavor, and because the city got the stamp of approval from three guys I didn't even know have no connection to Denver.
Yeah.
It's true. This is, I mean, which is funny if you think about then the one notable player that moved out of the city this time, like that seems like maybe he wasn't that into Denver potentially. Like just the notion that somebody wants to play on your team, like that you don't have to start off by trying to convince them that Denver is a good place to come. Like people that just inherently understand that is like already like
well, not just that this would be good for me too, but the word specifically visibility, which is not something you would have associated with the Denver Nuggets.
He might have got bad intel on that one.
There's a lot of the air is very clear in Denver. Very clear.
That's
air.
What
not a lot of pollution in Denver.
I know they're on national television all the time, locally.
Just not
the
locally.
Radio loves them.
Yeah, we know that you can't watch them on the local cable network, but they do appear on ESPN once a season. So I want to make sure that.
But it should also be noted that JaMychal Green talked about Michael Malone specifically in the way that made it sound like Michael Malone was a big factor of why he came, and like there's this or that. And look, man, I'm going to be the ultimate skeptic about any NBA players wanting to come, but there are at least a few guys that have circled Denver and said, hey, that's what I want to be a part of. And they are the Campazzos of the world, the JaMychal Greens of the world. Okay, maybe it's not Giannis, maybe it's not Paul George, but you know what? Denver already has those guys. They have Jamal Murray, they have Nikola Jokic, maybe they have Michael Porter.
That's how it
so
starts,
starting
too.
to get the high-level role players that want to be the pieces around it, to me, it's really encouraging.
It's a complete shift in paradigm. Like it's nothing that we've ever heard before. Everything is also like if we were ever to get any kind of player of note, it would be via trade that we found out later on they weren't happy about. They immediately shipped themselves out afterwards, or it was sort of like a last ditch effort, and we had to rely entirely on building via the draft. Like just the notion that we are getting players that are excited about the city of Denver just makes me so encouraged moving forward.
And I also just like how sort of creative Tim Connolly and co have gotten here. They're filling in the cracks around a championship roster and a team that historically is not known for visibility, does not draw interest. So what have they done? They've tapped into the Euro pipeline, right? Both in terms of nationality and Americans that are just playing over there. They took a cheap flyer on the talented but maybe underutilized so far Isaiah Hartenstein. So look, they'll do it their own way, right? Maybe they can't go the traditional path and get the Lakers buyout guys, so they'll get creative. I think there are a lot of questions about Campazzo. but I'm very excited about the idea of him fitting into the fold.
To be honest, I would so much rather have Facundo Campazzo than Montrezl Harrell. You know, or like one of these like just like guys that have like a terrible attitude, and you can tell like just really, really want to be in Los Angeles for the reasons that don't have anything to do with what happens on the basketball court. Like, I just love the idea as a fan of a legitimate fan of beautiful basketball, that people want to come and play alongside Nikola Jokic because they feel like it could complement their personal playing style. Like, man.
Yeah. I got the feeling from reading that letter that he just really wants to be in Denver, and he's really excited about coming to the NBA too. He talked about how it's like been his dream to always play in the NBA, and he wants to carve out a long career over here. It doesn't seem like this is going to be like a Milos Teodosic situation where he just plays one season and then goes back. It seems like he definitely wants to be here. And another factor that made Campazzo comfortable with Denver, from what I heard, is that Marty Pocious, who we all know in the Nuggets front office, was a teammate of Campazzo's.
Were they teammates? I don't know if they were teammates. I was looking at it up, and I don't know if there was overlap. So Marty Pocious, who played at Duke and then played at Real Madrid, but I think he left right as Campazzo arrived.
Okay, well, they were either teammates or they were just like in the same organization together from in some capacity. I thought they were teammates, but there's just familiarity there, and that stuff really helps, especially if you're coming over from Europe with your family. You don't know anyone here. That stuff can be really valuable.
Yeah, and I like the Nuggets tweeted out a video, and I think they show him walking into the arena, and he goes first right from the parking lot and doesn't make the turn down the hallway to go to the locker room and to the practice facility. Instead, he walks right into the stadium and looks around it, because of course, you know, American stadiums are different than European stadiums in ways both good and bad. Like, but they are like sort of like grand and just like, okay, the suites and everything. You know, they just look like expensive or whatever. So he walks into this one, and you could just see him kind of taking it in, like, here I am. And in his letter, he talks about how this was such a dream of his whole life. So it was a cool moment that the Nuggets shared, a very personal one, of him walking into the arena for the first time and being like, here I am, I made it. And it was just a cool moment. I think huge tip of the hat to the Nuggets social media team for pulling that one off, because I thought it was so cool.
I need to watch that, and I'll imagine while he's looking up, he's looking specifically at my seats and thinking about the day that I'm able to look and scream "Let's go" at him from down.
It's so cool too. I mean, this is a guy we read his accomplishment list yesterday, and it was so long, but very similar energy to Najee and RJ Hampton finding out that they were drafted. I mean, we cover professional athletes, we hold them to standards. You know, are you good enough? Can you help the team win? But the human interest elements here are dope. Like, dreams came true. Dreams came true for Campazzo, and so I think you just have to root for a guy like that, not just because you're a Nuggets fan, but because it's an awesome story.
Yeah. He also said in there that he's not sure how much he's going to play. He doesn't know exactly what his role is. I don't think he's coming over here. I know people have talked about his playing time a lot. I don't think the Nuggets have guaranteed him 20 minutes a game or something. I don't think, or my read on it is, it's not that type of situation. I do think he's going to play. I think he's going to be in the rotation, but everybody's going to have to fight for minutes on this team, especially in that backcourt.
No. Yeah, so I thought it was cool. I'm all in on Campazzo. It's funny, I'm in on all these guys, but I'm getting more. You know, Campazzo makes an interesting story to me because there's such this I think I haven't got confirmation on this, but I'm told from Miroslav, the homie Miroslav, Serbian correspondent,
so you can take this to the bank.
So you can take it to the bank. That the buyout was almost equal to the contract that he has signed. His buyout from Real Madrid almost equal. I don't know if that's true or not. What I do know is that Campazzo probably could have made more money staying in Europe and being a star in Europe as opposed to fighting for a spot, of which he was very open for. He doesn't know if he's going to get playing time.
I love it.
And that just shows you how important it is for him. This, you know, it really does feel like this was more of achieving a dream over what was maybe financially made sense or what have you. And you just always root for that. And then lastly, in that letter, again, you can find it on Hoops Hype. In that letter, he also mentions that he's not going to be able to get away with some of the things he did in Europe, including complaining about playing time and how like coaches knew that he could be a guy that apparently sometimes he would be on the bench and spit like to like make a fuss to show that he's ready to go back in the game.
That's so funny, dude.
I had to read it a few times because I'm like reading it. I'm sure this was like translated or something, and I'm like reading it and I'm kind of like, what? You spit? Like, what?
He
Hold on.
spit
What's
on
going on?
his Argentinian coach's shoe once.
Oh my god!
My two
What's this with
examples
Michael
here-
Malone? I am so in on him trying this.
Between what little I know from Manu and the homie here, what an expressive people the Argentines. They do not hold back. They let you know how they feel.
Wait, is he going to start spitting? I don't know if I'm
Probably
ready for that.
not the thing you want to do in the COVID era either.
Oh my god!
Another thing about
We have some inside info here. I'm thinking we're getting from Europe that Campazzo and Pocious did in fact play together 2015 to 2017. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Trust my reporting, Adam. Trust my reporting. Another thing about Campazzo, guys, he was playing in a season like up until last Friday. I think his last game with Real Madrid was like less than a week ago. So he's not really ramping up for a season. He was already in the middle of one. So I think that bodes well for him just coming into this thing when a lot of other guys haven't had like a huge off season and it's not a typical ramp up time. He's already in shape. He's already been playing in a season.
He's ready for the on season, baby. He never had an off season. He went straight into the on season. This was fun, guys. The first date. Tomorrow we're gonna have more people. More interviews. Do you know who's on the docket for tomorrow, Harrison? Do we know already?
I don't know now.
I don't
Maybe
know either.
Campazzo though.
It might be Campazzo. Yeah, who knows?
Give it to me. I want it.
So we're going to have that tomorrow, 2 o'clock tomorrow, because I believe we've had to move things around, guys, because Nuggets media availability, we just don't know the timing. Like, they give it to us basically 24 hours in advance. But tomorrow we'll be able, 2 o'clock Mountain Time, and just expect a little bit of flexibility over the next couple of days. We're going to try to post the show on YouTube early in the morning with the time, so you can check YouTube and you'll see exactly what it is. That's all the more reason for you to subscribe and hit the little bell icon on YouTube if you're watching this. It gives you the notice, so it'll be like, oh, a new thing is scheduled. It'll tell you the time, and you'll get that.
Hey, we appreciate everyone commenting. Comment section's just been we don't even have to touch off the chain now.
Woj is a poor man's Miroslav. I love this.
If you do dig the show on YouTube, so many of you have been watching with us every day on YouTube. If you're a regular, subscribe to the channel, throw us a like. Those things go a really, really long way for us.
No doubt about it.
I just one quick thought here. Like, I love that we have transitioned from the things that did not happen in the offseason to the things that did happen in the offseason. Like, I don't really care like who signed or who didn't sign and what it is we imagined what was going to be happening and what the Nuggets were going to look like moving into the offseason. Like, now that the dust has settled and I'm sort of like kind of looking around and taking stock of the lay of the land, like, man, like, it's exciting. Like, I love that players themselves are bringing enthusiasm into this season that can maybe even like match our own. Like, dude, it's going to be on and or popping, my friends.
Sports are meant to be fun, and like when things are happening, we all do their immediate like, oh, we're nervous. This was whatever. We're at the point where we're like, you know what's fun? Sports, and we're gonna have fun with it.
Right.
We're gonna have a lot of fun over the course of the season. We're gonna have fun tomorrow, guys. We'll be back. Also, guess what drops later today? Breaking news from Michael Malone in his presser today. The NBA schedule is set to drop sometime today. So tomorrow's show, we're going to be breaking that down as well. We hope to see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
Can't wait to play Portland the first game of the season like we always do.
Yeah, I know. Breaking news.